Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're shifting gears a bit, moving away from the usual headlines and market noise.
Yeah, we're going internal.
Exactly. We're focusing on something really foundational. Emotional survival. We're doing a deep dive into why mental health care is so crucial, looking specifically listening to others, sure, but maybe even more importantly, listening to ourselves.
And we want to kind of redefine strength along the way, right? It's not always about toughing it out.
Spot on. So what's our source material for this conversation?
We're drawing from some really insightful excerpts from Cuidar la mente, rompiendo el silencio.
Which translates to Caring, Voices for Healing.
Right. And this comes from the work of Vanina Vergara.
Okay, and give us a little context on her. This isn't just academic theory, is it?
No, not at all. Vanina Vergara, she goes by CV Vergara for English speakers. She's from Asuncion, Paraguay, a mother of 3.
So there's a real personal dimension here.
Absolutely. Her platform, Caring, Voices for Healing, is explicitly about giving voice to those inner struggles, the things we're often told to keep quiet about.
The unspoken stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this deep dive is grounded in, that shared human need to manage our inner world just as carefully as we manage everything else.
And right off the bat, the source makes a really strong claim, one that's kind of the core of what we're exploring today.
Yeah, it cuts right through the noise. Mental health care is not optional.
Not a luxury item you add on if you have time.
Not a trend, definitely not a sign of weakness. That's maybe the biggest hurdle to get over.
So how does Vergara frame it then?
She calls it a fundamental necessity, like a basic act of respect you show yourself daily, quietly.
And a quiet act of respect. I like that. Because if you see it as a luxury,
You'll put it off, always. But if it's fundamental respect, it becomes, non-negotiable for just functioning with dignity.
that shift in perspective, necessity, not luxury, feels huge. We often think about awareness days like World Mental Health Day on October 10th.
Which is coming up, yeah. Useful for raising awareness, definitely.
But the source warns against containing it to just one day, right?
Absolutely. The reminder is helpful, but the practice has to be ongoing.
Like physical health, you don't just go to the gym once a year.
Exactly. Or, manage your finances only when there's a crisis. It needs to be woven into everyday life. Otherwise, we're just setting ourselves up to fail.
Okay, so if it's a necessity, why is there often so much resistance? Let's get into that history of silence the author talks about, how we move from just enduring to something stronger.
Well, that history she describes feels pretty universal, doesn't it? She notes that talking about mental health used to be, taboo.
A big taboo.
And it wasn't laws that enforced it, it was cultural conditioning, often within families.
Right, and this is where you, listening, might start nodding along. Vergara points to those phrases so many of us heard growing up.
Oh, yeah. Don't cry.
Don't make a fuss.
Or the big one, don't tell anyone, keep it inside.
And these weren't necessarily meant maliciously, I suppose, but they reinforced this idea that you just had to be stoic. Suck it up.
And the effect? The source says this taught us to, quote, sweep our pain under the rug.
We got good at the performance.
Masters of it. Smile while something inside of us quietly broke. That quiet breaking that's living in survival mode constantly.
That gap between the outside smile and the inside breaking, that creates real conflict, especially, in demanding jobs or the situations where you have to perform. Does the source talk about navigating that, the pressure to keep up appearances versus self-respect?
It tackles it by getting really clear on what strength actually is. The author herself says for years she thought enduring was strength, just gritting your teeth through the pain.
Because society often rewards that appearance of toughness, right?
It absolutely does. You get praised for pushing through, which basically rewards staying in that emergency state.
So you're incentivized to keep breaking quietly.
Precisely. But the real shift, the source argues, the true strength, it's the opposite.
What does that look like then?
It's asking for help. It's speaking up. And this is key, no longer hiding what hurts.
So vulnerability becomes the strength.
Yes, but vulnerability channeled towards healing. It's admitting the current way isn't working, that you can't just keep enduring. It's an active choice.
I'm thinking about leadership here. The old model is pure stoicism. But if you're constantly enduring, You're burning through your own resources.
You're draining the tank constantly.
So Vergara seems to say that the moment you speak up, you actually stop that internal bleed out.
That's exactly the mechanism she describes, that moment of breaking the silence, of putting words to the struggle. It's like a release valve.
An internal shift.
Yeah, she describes it almost like the soul can finally breathe again after being stuck in survival mode for so long.
Breathing again.
Just speaking, it moves you from mere survival towards some kind of stability, even if the external problem isn't magically fixed yet.
That idea of the soul breathing again, that leads us perfectly into the core focus we wanted to zero in on today. Listening.
The twin acts of listening.
Right. If breaking your own silence is step one for yourself, then learning to listen, learning presence, is step one for caring for others. Let's really unpack that concept. To care and settle, also to listen.
This is so crucial because it challenges our default response, doesn't it? When someone is hurting, we instantly feel this pressure
To fix it.
Yeah, to find the perfect words, the magic bullet phrase that will make it all better. We want to be the hero, the solver.
And that pressure can make us say clumsy things or jump in with advice when maybe that's not what's needed at all.
Exactly. We end up talking over their pain. But Vergara says, hang on, that burden of the perfect words, it's misplaced.
So what is required then, according to her? It sounds like it's simpler.
Conceptually simpler, yes, but maybe harder to actually do, especially if you're wired to solve problems.
Okay, lay it out for us.
She says it's enough simply to listen,
Just listen.
to not interrupt,
Mm-hmm.
and critically to not judge.
No judgment. That feels like the hardest part sometimes.
It is, because the focus shifts entirely. It's not about your brilliant input. It's about the quality of the space you create for their experience. Can you hold it without needing to change it immediately?
Let's dig into that non-judgment piece.
Mm.
Practically speaking, what if someone's expressing something that feels, I don't know, destructive, or something you just fundamentally disagree with? How do you stay non-judgmental then?
That's a great question. The source suggests non-judgment here means setting aside your immediate reaction to what they're saying,
Okay.
and instead validating their right to feel whatever they're feeling. It's like a temporary suspension of your own viewpoint.
So it's not agreement.
Definitely not agreement. If someone's venting destructive anger, you're not saying, yeah, go smash things. You're allowing the pain behind that anger to be heard without shutting it down as wrong or irrational.
You're looking for the feeling underneath the expression.
Exactly. It pushes the conversation deeper past the surface reaction.
And that commitment to going deeper connects to that powerful question the source highlights. We all ask, how are you?
All the time. Reflexively.
But the text insists we need to ask, how are you really?
And then this is the kicker. You have to stay long enough to hear the answer.
Stay long enough. That phrase says so much.
It's the commitment, isn't it? If you ask, how are you really? And they actually start opening up about something heavy.
And you glance at your watch because you have a meeting.
You've just failed the presence test. Miserably. Staying signals that their truth, their messy, complicated feelings, matter more in that moment than your schedule or your own comfort.
It changes a casual greeting into a potential act of profound care.
Which is why the source concludes that caring for mental health, it does not always require grand gestures.
It requires presence.
Just presence, being that reliable anchor point. You don't need to orchestrate some huge intervention. Just be there, steadily.
This makes me think about the language we use when trying to support someone. We fall back on cliches sometimes.
We do, and often they're meant well, but they can land really flat, or even feel invalidating.
The source contrasts two common phrases, doesn't it?
Yes, very powerfully. Think about how often we tell someone struggling to be strong.
Happens all the time.
But psychologically, what can that feel like to the person hearing it? Maybe it feels like, okay, handle this quietly, don't burden me. It puts the onus back on them to perform strength.
Right. But what's the alternative suggested?
The truly healing phrase, Vergara suggests, is simply, I'm here with you.
I'm here with you. Why is that so much more effective?
Because it's about shared load. It shifts the focus from their solitary battle to companionship. It says, I see this is hard, and I'm not running away. I'll sit with you in it.
It doesn't demand they change how they feel immediately.
Exactly. It validates the struggle without demanding performance. It moves from, you need to fix this alone, to, we're connected in this moment. That's fundamentally healing for humans, isn't it? Shared presence.
But that ability to offer that kind of non-judgmental, steady presence to someone else, that surely depends on whether we can offer it to ourselves first.
Ah, yes. the pivot inward. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
If we're constantly ignoring our own internal alarms, how can we possibly hold space for someone else's?
We can't. Not authentically. The source is clear. Presence begins with the self, which means self-care stops being this, indulgent, fluffy thing.
And becomes what?
A prerequisite, a necessity for actually being able to function and show up for others and for yourself.
Okay, so if presence starts inward, we need to know what we're listening for inside ourselves. Vergara gets specific here, right? She doesn't just say, listen to yourself.
No, she points to 3 critical areas, 3 types of internal signals we tend to ignore or override.
What's the first one?
The body. Simple but profound. Listen to your body when it's tired.
That sounds easy, but in our always-on culture.
It's revolutionary. We equate rest with laziness, productivity with virtue. So actually acknowledging deep fatigue, not just reaching for more caffeine, means fighting that internal cultural script.
Recognizing exhaustion as a real signal, not a character flaw.
Exactly. A signal of depletion. Your body is trying to tell you something important.
Okay, listening to the body. What's the second area? This one feels maybe more complex.
It is. It's about listening to our emotions, particularly when they show up in disguise. The source says they scream disguised as anger, anxiety, or sadness.
Screaming in disguise. Tell me more about that. How does an emotion wear a disguise?
Think about it. Sometimes the emotion we feel most strongly on the surface, or the one we show others, maybe it's irritability or constant worry or just a general flatness, that might not be the root feeling. It might be a mask, a defense mechanism protecting us from something deeper, something more vulnerable underneath.
That's why.
Like fear, or deep hurt, or an unmet need that feels too scary to acknowledge directly. The anger, the anxiety, they act like bodyguards for the more fragile parts of us.
So how do we listen past the disguise? How do you know if it's, say, justified anger versus anger that's really a cover for fear?
The source implies it takes reflection. Asking yourself, okay, I feel angry right now. What's under this anger? What triggered it? Is the reaction proportionate? Or is this feeling familiar, maybe chronic? What might it be protecting me from?
That's deep work. That requires real internal presence.
It does. Looking behind the curtain of the immediate feeling.
Okay, body, disguised emotions.
Yeah.
What's the third area of internal listening?
This one hits on boundaries and self-worth. It's listening to our needs, our legitimate needs, without feeling guilty for tending to them.
The guilt. That's a big one for many people.
Huge. If you need an hour of quiet after a chaotic day, or you need to say no to a request, or you just need some space, and tending to that need immediately triggers guilt.
Then you're essentially punishing yourself for having needs.
Exactly. And that guilt often ties back to that cultural history we talked about, being told not to make a fuss, that your needs are selfish or demanding.
So listening to the body's fatigue, the emotion's disguises, and our own needs without the guilt filter. These 3 give us the data.
The raw data for genuine self-care.
And this is where Vergara offers that incredibly powerful definition, the one that reframes everything.
She draws a very clear line in the sand. First, she states unequivocally, self-care is not selfishness.
Let's just let that sink in. It's not selfishness.
And then she defines what it is.
She calls it is emotional survival.
Boom. Emotional survival.
What does that definition change for you, the listener? How does thinking of it as survival shift things?
It changes everything. If something is about survival, it's no longer optional. It's not a nice to have, it's fundamental.
Like breathing or finding water.
Exactly. It moves self-care from the bottom of your endless to-do list right to the very top. Because skipping it isn't just about feeling a bit stressed. It's actively undermining your ability to function. It's self-sabotage.
It removes the moral judgment around taking time or setting boundaries. It's not selfish, it's necessary maintenance for survival.
Absolutely. It reframes the risk. The risk isn't taking the time off. The risk is not taking it, potentially leading to burnout or breakdown. It ensures your stability.
And that idea of necessary maintenance, not just crisis response, leads us right into the next section, thinking about mental health as ongoing upkeep.
Yeah, moving away from this idea that you only pay attention to your mental health when something goes spectacularly wrong.
Like only going to the doctor when you're already seriously ill.
Precisely. The source argues we need the same proactive approach we take or aspire to take with diet, exercise, sleep. Applying that to the inner world. Caring for what cannot be seen.
But caring for the unseen requires visible actions, doesn't it? It's not just thinking nice thoughts.
Not at all. It translates into tangible changes in how we live. The source lists some really concrete, sometimes difficult steps for this proactive maintenance.
Let's walk through them. The first one sounds like a direct follow-on from breaking the silence.
It is setting boundaries where one once stayed silent.
This is where the internal listening meets external action.
Exactly. Taking that awareness of your needs, your limits, that pain you used to ignore, and using it to draw a line.
What might that look like?
Could be anything. Saying no to extra work when you're already overloaded. Limiting contact with someone who consistently drains you. Even simple things like turning off email notifications after hours.
But setting new boundaries can be hard. People push back.
Oh, definitely. It takes courage because you're disrupting the status quo, the established dynamic, but it's the physical act of honoring that internal voice.
Okay, setting boundaries. What's next?
Seeking professional help without fear.
Again, pushing back against that old taboo.
Right. Normalizing therapy or counseling, just like you'd see a specialist for any other complex issue. Recognizing you don't have to flush it all out alone. And sometimes an expert guide is crucial for decoding those disguised emotions or establishing those boundaries effectively.
Makes sense. The source also mentions relationships directly.
Yes, and this one can be particularly painful, but vital for survival. Walking away from relationships that cause illness or harm.
Wow, cause illness. That's strong language.
It is. It implies some connections, work, family, friends, romantic, are literally toxic to our well-being. They make us unwell.
So emotional survival might mean creating distance.
It might mean choosing your health over maintaining a connection that is consistently damaging. A very hard choice, but sometimes necessary.
And underlying all these actions, boundaries, help, relationship assessment, what's the core internal shift needed?
Learning to trust ourselves again.
Trusting that inner voice.
Yes. If your history involved silencing yourself, ignoring your needs, trusting that gut feeling, that signal from your body, that emotional truth, that takes practice. It's about validating your own perceptions again.
So all this maintenance, the boundaries, the help, the relationship choices, the self-trust, what's the ultimate goal? Is it just to be happy all the time?
No, and the source is very clear about this. That's unrealistic. Life throws curveballs. The goal isn't constant happiness, which is fragile and often depends on externals.
So what is the goal?
It's finding peace, even when life isn't perfect.
Peace, as it feels more stable, more internal.
Exactly. It's that deep-seated calm that comes from knowing you're tending to your inner world, regardless of the chaos outside. It's resilience built from the inside out.
And thinking about the bigger picture, the legacy of doing this work, breaking the silence, tending to ourselves, the source suggests it echoes outwards.
It really does. It frames it as an act of love. For yourself, obviously, but also for the people around you who benefit from your stability and presence, and importantly, for the next generation.
How so? For future generations.
Because they watch us. They learn how to handle pain, how to value mental health by seeing how we do it. Breaking the silence changes the family narrative, the cultural narrative.
So we can change how the past is remembered almost.
In a way, yes. By speaking about it, by integrating it. The source says we can turn pain into experience, fear into understanding, and silence into voice.
That's incredibly powerful, turning silence into voice.
That transformation is the healing. It's reclaiming your story.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've journeyed through the necessity of mental health care, framed not as a luxury, but as respect, as survival.
Driven by that core concept. To care is also to listen. Listening outward with presence, without judgment.
And listening inward to our bodies, our disguised emotions, our needs, recognizing that self-care is emotional survival.
Absolutely.
So as you, our listener, sit with these ideas, self-care is survival, presence as the core of supporting others, we want to leave you with a final thought, something to maybe try out.
Right. Building on that idea of turning silence into voice, of moving from endurance to active maintenance, think about this past week. Can you recall a moment when you felt that internal signal? Maybe profound tiredness you ignored, or that flash of anger that might have been masking something else, or a need you felt guilty about.
Just identify one instance.
Now, based on that specific signal, what is one small, concrete boundary you could choose to set tomorrow? Not someday, but tomorrow. What practical action represents listening to that signal and choosing emotional survival in that tiny moment, moving from silence to voice just for yourself?
A small act of internal listening translated outward.
Exactly. And finally, as we close, we want to share the specific sign-off provided by the author in the source material. I'll read it directly. I am Vanina Vergara, CV Vergara, to the English-speaking world, born in Asuncion, Paraguay. I have 3 children whom I love deeply, and this is my life. I read letters sent to mailto.vergaravanina@yahoo.com.